So, yeah, I don't know. I've been trying to over the past like 10 to 20 episodes, just been trying to, I don't know, just speak up a little bit more because I find that I get a little bit more like wishy-washy with my opinions, where it's like, oh, do I need to make this Twitter post or whatever, or do people really care?
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know, I'll just try to speak the truth or whatever I think is, right or whatever, and then just deal with the consequences, good or bad.
It's really like a mind over matter situation too.
Yeah. It totally is, because it's like, if I don't put myself out there anyway, then like I get nowhere. I don't know. So if I get a good response or bad response, then it's still like good criticism regardless.
Right.
Yeah, that's yeah, I'm all set up on my side, and I don't know, like, how do you format your show, Stoney?
Well, so there's this thing that I do with every show where I kind of have like a false start, and I start it kind of early, so it's like a pre-conversation. So I technically started about a minute ago when we were chatting about,
right on.
Yeah, and then I kind of go in with an intro. It's all free form. I've been doing interviews for like 4 years, but the podcast is very new. And
okay.
So with interviews, I found out that like the best interviews that you have are the people who are completely ill-prepared and have no subject material whatsoever.
Oh, okay, I like that. Yeah.
So
like,
it's really free form,
Yeah.
Improved.
That's 100% how, yeah, I like doing the pods and just talking to people. But yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, welcome to the Smoke Stop Podcast. I am your host, Tony Ahina, and I am here with...
Hi, I am Theo. I am a dog, and I go bark on the internet, and I draw and do arts.
Awesome. All right, cool. That's the show.
I mean, I don't know. Should
How long have you been an artist?
Go on about?
Yeah.
How long?
Simple. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Technically, I guess I could go as far back as to say like middle school. So maybe, let's see, I'm 25 now. So, oh gosh, I think about like 10 years ago, when I was around 15 or 14, I first started my first like art class.
Right.
Just as like a wheel course. It wasn't anything specific, or it was just general art, like we're gonna do a little bit of charcoal drawing, some clay, pottery, like kind of everything. But I would say like until I took it seriously as something I wanted to get better at, I probably started officially like 3 years ago, that I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to get better at this craft. And I would say it was around the same time where it's like I also want to take like a step into the fandom. So around, yeah, it's kind of funny, around the same time as where I became an artist, I also became a furry.
I feel like that's really common with most artists in the fandom too. Is right when they became an artist, they also kind of became a furry, because it kind of translates to, if you like drawing a specific thing, you'll most likely when you get better at an artist, you'll evolve towards liking to draw. I'm so bad at English today.
No, I totally get what you're saying though. It's like, I mean, that's what I found as a general thing, even like when I've just talked to people and when they like garner an interest for their passion, they'll start getting into the fandom and then like talking with other furs who are just like-minded, because the fandom is just, it has so many different subgroups and like niche groups of like interests.
Right.
So like I interviewed Nazido. He's a ichthyologist and he studies like ants and stuff like that. So ever since he was in the fandom, like he would get art and stuff like that, but then the one thing that he was most interested and passionate about was like insects and the environment. And then I think like recently he even made a post about how he's with his husband after like 9 or 10 years, and it was really cute. He showed just real quick, he showed like a post of like their first DMs about like a ladybug or something about that, and they were nerding out over that, and then they became a really cool relationship.
It was like the me back then, me now tweet that's like blowing up right now.
Yeah, those are really. I love seeing those from other furs too, because like you get to see how far they've grown, and I love when artists even do like the old style that they used to do, and then like how they've grown from that too. But
it's just amazing to watch like the steady improvement, or not even steady, just the start out small and then just instantly right there, and you don't get to see that steady improvement. You just get to see then and now, and I feel like it has way more meaning than just actually watching it steadily improve.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of like when you have a dog and it's a little puppy, and then you just like when you're taking care of the puppy like every day, you don't notice it really getting any bigger.
Right.
But then maybe when your friend or your family comes to visit, it's like, oh my god, your dog is so huge now. But it's like, oh, I didn't realize.
What's even funnier about that is when they say that and then it hits you, you're like, wow, yeah, oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, 100%. Yeah, because it's like, wow, she or he got that fat. Oh my god. But I think so like I guess getting into the art and stuff was something like that I really found like I could be like really open and honest with myself, because I was really struggling to like become an artist, quote unquote, because like I feel like whenever I start art, or I would see others start art, it would be like in their bio on Twitter or FA being like quote unquote aspiring artist or something like that.
Right.
So like whatever it is that you want it to be when you're first starting out, I think like we're really hesitant about becoming that thing. So it's always aspiring XYZ, and then it's like, no, like one thing that I learned over the course of like the year or two of like growing as an artist in the community, where it's like I want to set out to do singing or drawing or illustration. In my case, it was like I want to get better at this, and then the community totally like was supportive and loving of like anything I could put out, and then that's where it made me feel like, no, I am an artist, and I stopped putting like aspiring artist in my bio. So that was like one of the things that solidified in my brain that okay, like I am a furry and I am an artist.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I almost completely forgot. This is called the Smoke Stop Podcast, so I have to have some form of smoke.
Oh, what is that about?
So the original thing I wanted to do was, man, regular podcasts are really boring. I should put my own spin on it. And I was like, what if I just smoked? And then that just stuck with me for like the rest of my... Yeah.
What do you smoke? Like a cigar or a cigarette or a hookah?
I'm not that rich for hookah.
Well, I don't know. I don't smoke at all. Maybe I should I don't know. I should smoke should I vape? I don't know. I don't even have a vape.
I wouldn't do it. It's bad for you. There's no safe way to intake nicotine. People are always like, oh, you can vape, oh, you can do this, and you can do that. But there really is no safe way to actually intake nicotine or just tobacco in general.
I heard like when you smoke or something, it's not really like you're not supposed to breathe it in. Aren't you just supposed to kind of like taste it? Or is that a cigar thing?
With cigars and pipe, that is what you're supposed to do. It's called puffing, where cigarettes are more of the inhale. So you smoke cigarettes or you do dip for the nicotine buzz, where with cigars and pipe, it's more of an aroma kind of thing, a flavor.
Aromatic. I see.
But speaking of smoke, I actually do not have any cigars or pipe tobacco left. So I had to look around in my tobacco bag, and the only thing that I managed to find was a pack of Grizzly Dark Wintergreen dipping tobacco. Now,
can you smoke that?
I mean, you could. You'd get really sick. I've seen people do it, but I myself, I'm not a fan of snuff. I more prefer snus pouches. So when you have dip, you have snuff and snus. Snuff is normally like this loose, like stringy, disgusting crap that you see like people in the South do, and they have the metal spittoons, ding,
Oh, that thing. Okay.
Yeah. Where snus normally you have loose snus and then pouch snus. Snus normally comes in a pouch. You put it in like your upper lip, and it's like a breath mint basically.
Oh, and what, you just like let it chill there in your mouth and you just kind of suck on it?
Yeah, literally.
Oh, wow.
But I do have Grizzly Dark Wintergreen Snuff. I hate this shit so much. But the show must go on. What I'm doing right now is this is a pack. And what it does is it pushes it to one side of the can so it's easier to grab, because it literally is like, it's like if you put a paper through like a paper shredder and then took the shreds and then put the shreds through the paper shredder and then took those shreds and just kept doing it until it was like as thin as hair, and then like dumped wintergreen juice on it. It's not a pleasant taste, but it is.
So it's like a really fine pulp that's like saturated in like a concoction of like nicotine and flavor.
Yes, that's actually exactly what it is, with a mixture of I don't know if this is true, but supposedly also fiberglass strands, because how the science of tobacco works is it actually has to enter your system. It can't just be sitting like somewhere connected to your system. So people make the assumption that they might put fiberglass in there, which causes the inside of your gums to get mildly cut, but not like severe as like hospital.
Oh my god.
I don't think it's true, but then again, that's how leukoplakia forms. It's called gator lip. That's what you get. It's like mouth cancer. Well, actually, it is mouth cancer, but.
And I mean, it's designed to cut your mouth so it goes in your blood easier.
I just heard it's like a rumor. I don't know if it's true. Oh god, it tastes so fucking bad.
I mean, I don't know. Is that like, if it tastes good? I don't think. I would think you would want to taste something that's enjoyable.
I mean, it depends on the person. For instance, I do like Copenhagen wintergreen. It's much. It has a much more bland taste. It's not like really strong wintergreen flavor. Where Grizzly has like a really strong wintergreen taste, and I just can't deal with it.
I wish I had something like that, because it's like, you know, at work or whatever, it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go on a smoke break or something. It's like, I don't smoke, I don't drink. Can I go have like a fresh water break? I don't know.
And you can hear that. That's like the most white trash Southern thing that you could ever hear. Like, have you ever been to any other state, specifically in the southern United States?
No, not. Well, technically, I'm in the most southern state, but no, I have. As far as like the mainland, like North America, I've only stuck to the West Coast, like California, Nevada, Washington side.
But you have been to like Southern California or like Nevada, so.
A little bit, yeah.
So, in that area of just the southern United States, one of the things that you're gonna hear the most is just this sound right here, just. And just the sound of a spit hitting a spittoon, just a ding, a lot. Because I've been to Florida, which is considered, everybody calls New Jersey the armpit of the United States, but I honestly think Florida is the armpit of the United States.
I've heard Florida, for the most part.
Yeah, I rarely hear any stories where it's like, New Jersey man did this. It's always Florida man did this. So it's like the crack den of the United States. But driving through Tampa with my grandmother, there were people literally sitting on their front porch with their shirts off that are wearing like Italian like wife beater clothes, like you know what I mean?
Is it just that like there's so many people in Florida that they just do these things, or is it like the laws are different there that just allow these things to happen? I don't know.
I think it's a mixture of both, because even in like Texas, people would be surprised. Texas is the exact same as Florida, and so is Louisiana, so is Nevada, so is Southern California, and if you go past the U.S., Baja California is the same way, and northern Mexico City is the same way. I don't know if it has to do with laws. I think it's a little bit of both.
I've heard that there's this pretty wild thing that I've heard where it's like in Texas, there are more captive, like people have more captive pet tigers than there are tigers in the wild. Like how?
That's probably true. Texas has little to no laws on exotic animals. I'm from Michigan. Michigan has some of the, I wouldn't say strongest, but they do have very, very heavy laws when it comes to exotic animals. Right?
Oh, that's why. Okay.
But I think it also has to rely on, when I think of someone who's just like, man, screw the government, I can do whatever I want, I think of instantly of like Republicans, right? And Southern America is super conservative. You know, we want our guns, we want everything. I said in the email that I wouldn't talk politics, but it isn't really politics, it's more common sense. The Southern United States is very conservative, right? I mean, the whole Civil War was based off of it.
Yeah, I could see that as a broad generalization. Yeah, for the most part.
Right. But I think that also has to do with it, because they just have that mentality where I've been to the South, you know, I've had relatives that fought on both sides of the Civil War, you know, and you can see where each side comes from, because back then, actually, history time, the Civil War wasn't even originally about emancipation and freeing the slaves. It was originally about state versus government, and then it took like 3 years for Abe Lincoln to actually say this is going to be about emancipation, which is why during the Civil War, Britain was actually going to send arms to the South, and they ended up not doing that because Lincoln changed it from state versus government to emancipation.
So they got their guns?
No. Britain ended up pulling out and supporting the government because Lincoln changed it to emancipation. But yeah, there's a cool history fact.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
But it's just really funny.
Yeah, like, no, see, like, there's all this, like, history and stuff, and it's so funny, like, growing up in Hawaii, too. Like, I think every state needs to learn a little bit about, like, where their state has been from and how it's, like, cultivated into what it is today. But as much as I've learned about, like, mainland America from my elementary school to high school here, without physically going to, like, those locations or traveling around your own nation, like, it's so hard to just get a grasp on, like, what your geography is. Like, I'm pretty sure I can only name like 40 different states or 30 states. I don't know everyone.
Right. And a lot of people don't realize that that's actually really common. There are actually people who cannot name like all 50 states. And I don't blame them, because geography is not one of those classes that's like really taught anymore. It's like woodshop, you know? It's just one of those classes that was thrown out, and they're like, we don't need that, you know? And they put geography and history, you know?
I don't think I even took woodshop, jeez. Yeah, I went to a public school, and that's public school for you.
Did you grow up where, were you in the era where they started to phase out computers that had just keyboards, and they started implementing computers that had mouses, and they ran like Windows 95, 98?
Well, I was born in 94, so I think I missed that window. But in my elementary and high school and stuff, around, I would say, like 2004, 2006 era, they were, we had floppy disks. Right. We used to run a couple of programs on there and like learn different softwares with, like, I don't know, I remember like animating a tiger in some sort of like MS Paint like tool where you could like drag and make buttons that you could activate and stuff. And like, I don't know, like just a whole bunch of random stuff, like going to my grandma's house, and like we had during that time like little Bigfoot's adventures and stuff. Just a bunch of, I don't know what you would call that, like CDI games or something.
Like CD-ROM games, literally. Just like learning programs. Because I grew up...
Mostly math,
When I was in high school, the floppy disk was completely phased out. And people weren't even using CD-ROM anymore. They were using DVD. Like when I was in... Oh shit. When I was in the 6th grade, the Xbox 360 and PS3 were coming out. Right?
Oh, wait, we might be around the same age then. Yeah.
No.
No?
You're way older than me. I'm 19. I didn't graduate.
Shoot, okay.
I didn't graduate though. I dropped out in 2019. But no, I grew up, you know, a lot of people think it's always that same slogan where like when the 2000s kid joins a 90s fans like Facebook group, and they're like, yeah, you may have grew up with 90s things, but you're not a 90s kid. And it's like, well, I understand where you're coming from, but a lot of the stuff that you had, some people grew up with either because they were in a poor family and they were just like a year behind on like new technology. Because no, go ahead.
No, but that's totally true, because I've had friends too where I've sort of had that syndrome too, where it's like I'm not thinking about when others like grew up around me who are younger, and then you could easily like kind of downplay like other people's experiences.
Right.
And it's like, oh yeah, I grew up with this, why didn't you? But no, like maybe we didn't have money or they didn't have those resources. So I had some friends too where I grew up playing N64 around like elementary, but some of my friends didn't play it till like they were in like, I don't know, high school or something. And it's like, wow, oh, like, I don't know.
See, that was my thing with computers, you know. I grew up using computers that didn't even have a mouse. It was all like basic, you know, or DOS. And then
yeah, that's pretty crazy. Yeah.
My dad was the more tech savvy person. So on my dad's side of the family, we had like the newest software, newest hardware and everything. But on my mom's side of the family, like when I was born in 2001, the first console I ever played was an Atari 2600, which came out in like 73, 74? Or it might have been wild. It might have been newer than that. It might have been 78.
I've never touched one of those, but definitely like, wow, like 30 years later, then some other kid can just pick that up and then start enjoying that. That's what's pretty cool.
I always use that like story too as an excuse to call myself a boomer, even though I'm only 19. Because I don't know. I mean, everything that was older was just so much better. It has like it's not really a nostalgia thing, but it's more of just like everything back then just seemed cooler.
You're capturing the nostalgia that you never had from the boomer generation that you want to grow up in.
Yeah, literally, that's literally 100% accurate.
Wow, I mean that's pretty cool. It's like I was just watching this YouTube video too about this guy trying to recapture the 90s aesthetic and feel of the Crash Bandicoot universe. So he made this little pocket universe for himself where like he couldn't use modern stuff. And he had to like dress up all in 90s clothes. He had to play on a CTR. He had to play from the original consoles and stuff with like red and yellow and white cables. I forget what they're called.
AV. Composite.
Yeah, just AV cables. Yeah. And he's like, oh yeah, it was great. It sucked, but it was great for the 90s.
It's insane.
Yeah. It's funny too, like even kind of talking about this retro stuff, I've been getting into like emulators, and I got this thing called like a Retroid Pocket. And it's just this cool little like GBA/N64 emulator, and I've just been like playing with it for the past week, and I've been downloading like old Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games and what else, like Paper Mario, the first one on N64. Oh, it's been great. Yeah. But yeah, it's crazy though, because like I can just play that all now in my pocket, and I don't need a giant TV anymore.
Not only that, I feel like a lot of the things that kids had in the 90s and even the 80s and 70s were so much simpler.
Yeah, I would say so. Like I don't know, like I also saw this one meme where you would see like a whole bunch of different appliances, like from radio sets, like boom boxes to CD players, video cam recorders and stuff, and then it's all like the modern age. It's all in your phone, it's all in your pocket now, and it's all better and in higher fidelity.
But it takes away from the aspect of actually learning how to use something, because in modern days you just open up your phone, you're like, oh, take a quick picture, you know.
Yeah, and I'll take a selfie.
Yeah. There's literally actually like, it's considered the first selfie ever, and it was like photographed in like 1898 or something like that, and a guy actually took like an old camera and mounted it on like a broomstick and held it out. It was like the first selfie stick. It's a really neat picture, and it's never been debunked. It's an actual
just
like
so
real
he
picture.
could take a picture of himself.
Yeah, it's him and his wife.
That's pretty cool.
But I'm just imagining like how long you have to hold that, because exposure time on cameras was so long. That's why nobody
You
ever
have to
smiled in
hold-
those old photos.
Why? Because they couldn't keep their face straight long enough, I guess.
Yeah. Well, they have to stand completely still because of the exposure time. So a lot of people didn't smile because it just took so much time. They imagine you literally had to smile for like an hour.
It'd be really funny if somebody blinked and it's like, God damn it, I gotta do the whole thing over again.
Yeah, there's literally like pictures like that, where like someone would be sitting down, like they have like 5 seconds left of exposure time, and then the guy sneezes, and they're like, "Oh, we gotta redo it." You know?
Oh shit. You know, could you get the gunpowder and put it on the thing again and ignite it?
Yeah.
But I like, to your point about like how, yeah, so the phone does everything and we don't really take it we do take it for granted. One of the highlighted points that I got from like Cooper Tom watching him, like we talked about earlier, was that I like how he really highlights and shares his experience with just like kind of one aspect of something at a time. And he's just like super enamored by it. So it's like, oh wow, look at like this I don't know, VR world or something, or look at this like camcorder from like 30 years ago.
Right.
And all of that tech and stuff and those experiences were just like things you did one thing at a time, sort of, rather than just having them all like in just all of the media in your pocket. And like, yeah, I would say like, although I'm capable of doing all of these different things in terms of like production, like recording in 4K, editing it, and doing all of these modern things that we do now, I don't know the ins and outs of doing directly one thing, like kind of to like put it in a phrase, like I'm more of a jack of all trades in terms of my understanding than a master of one.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really, I don't know. I do like thinking about that kind of stuff from time to time to sort of like, you know, appreciate those things. But I'll tell you what, I really do like having all that power though.
Yeah, right at your fingertips, you know.
Yeah, I think I also saw Cooper, like he made a Twitter post or whatever, just showing like, oh yeah, here's this $500 camera. It can take 5 pictures and then your floppy disk is full. So I don't know. I like my 128 gigs of my Samsung.
Yeah, because like looking at it now, like when was the last time like you actually, like your parents or like you had to buy a disposable camera that had 10 pictures and then you have to go to like a CVS pharmacy to have it like actually done and everything?
What's funny about that though is how like you can even like look at different tech stores and stuff and just see that their camera section has all of these retro things.
Yeah.
So when you go to see like film being still sold, or when you can buy like Polaroids, it's like, what generation are we living in? But the newest generation didn't grow up with those things, so they really wanted to still experience, you know, like the phrase like what is new is old and what's old is new now. Yeah, they can really go back and experience those things, like with like the Atari or like N64 when we're talking about gaming and stuff. That's really cool to see, and you see it across like all of these different things, like not only in tech but in like fashion and clothing and like Vans All-Stars or whatever. It's crazy. Especially with fashion, because I remember in like 2008 when people were like, we should totally bring back the mullet, and then it died out instantly. I don't think that ever lasted that long though.
Yeah. People
just forget and then remember how bad it was. I don't know. I had a mullet though.
I still kind of have a mullet. I don't plan on getting rid of it too.
No, rep your style. That's totally cool. I even had like a rat tail. I don't know. I look like I could have been from the South.
It's amazing. Just like how much like the human race has both improved and also like completely failed.
Yeah, the landscape ain't looking so hot right now. But I don't know, how is your kind of, I don't know, living quarantine life? How's your 2020 been?
Surprisingly enough, it's been pretty dull.
Oh,
like,
cool.
Not as super dull as I thought it was gonna be. Like, I know California took it really seriously. Like, you weren't able to go outside, you know, you weren't able to like go to like a grocery store. In fact, it actually got so bad that I'm pretty sure the United States actually thought about sending the National Guard to like implement like rations and stuff like that. Luckily, Michigan was a little more lenient on it, which seems funny because in the news you see so much crap about our current governor, Gretchen Whitmer, and how everyone's like, I hate her, she's a goddamn dictator, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, well, she's just taking safety precautions, you know. Do the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, damned if you do or don't. I mean, better safe than sorry is like a big generalization, I know, but it's sort of a clown show over here too, because our industry here in Hawaii relies so much on tourism. And guess what? The one thing that could kill tourism for us was a global pandemic.
Right.
So our economy's tanked. All of our state workers are gonna have to take furloughs within like the next year or two, just to coop up some of that loss.
Right.
I mean, I myself as a government employee too, I'm gonna be furloughed. Like, I think it's like every other week we have to take 1 day off, not paid. So that kind of sucks. But at the same time, hey, 3-day weekend, I can go work on art some more.
Right.
So, you know, silver linings, but overall, like, I'll tell you this one funny story. So like, it was funny when the quarantines and lockdowns started. I could start feeling like more and more of the pressure happening with all like the political stuff happening, because it's like you're quarantined, you're locked down, you can't go on your vacations, you have to cancel that for the year.
Right.
What else can I focus on? Well, I guess I'm gonna go online. What do you see online? Oh, more political crap. Oh, more riots, more strikes, more just negativity. And that broke me a couple of times. And then I was like, I feel so alone and distraught in the world. And then the one straw that broke the camel's back for me was like, oh, I'm gonna still stay jipper about this, and I'm gonna go outside. I'm gonna stay exercise. I'm gonna keep up my exercise, stay healthy, stay fit. And then one morning I went out to go walk my dog, and we were just approaching this the park that's right up from the backyard of my house. So we went around it, and then there's this bike trail that I went down and walked, and then I was texting my buds and stuff on Telegram. Walking down, then I reached the park, and I was like, okay, we're on our way back home. Just going from the park back to my residence, and then just as I get 2 doors down from my house, an unmarked vehicle comes over, and I'm like, oh, what's this about? And I don't think anything of it, but then a cop jumps down, and he's like, wait, hold up, guy, or whatever. I'm like, oh shit, what's this about? He's like, you broke rule 6 of quarantine or whatever. And I'm like, what is that? So I have my mask on and everything, and so does he. So he's like, you're in violation of the rule 6, which doesn't permit you to go through the state parks. And I was like, really? This is just behind my house. I walked through it just to get back to my residence, strictly just to walk my dog and stay healthy. And he's like, yep, I still gotta write you up, and then I have a court summons now. So that's gonna be fun next week. But man, that was the one thing I was like, wow, I just trying to stay healthy, and I can't even do that without getting a court summons.
That's insane though, that they writ you up on a first offense too.
Yep. I've never done anything in my life, but I will be damned for doing the one thing on my criminal record, that is walking my dog.
That's insane. That's actually insane. Like,
yeah, needless to say, I'm still salty about it. I will be bitter, and I will be very truthful about that.
Yeah, but it's kind of funny though. There are people that have committed like homicide and like killed several people, and the cops were like, we'll give you a warning. Like, yeah, you went outside to go walk your dog, and he was like, nope, gotta write you up. You know?
Yep, and it was crazy because part of that oppressing feeling that I've never felt before in my life was that they're watching you. You may not know it, but an unmarked vehicle may approach you because they're watching you. And it was like a darn shame, because it made me feel less invested and proud of my, just kind of the way that things are and the way that my government's handling things.
Right.
But I know it's tough, and for such a minor offense, I know it's really petty, but it's like, damn it, like, we're all trying to do our best, so, you know, I'm not hurting anybody, so hopefully things go leniently for me and for other people who have also gone through dumb stuff like that.
Yeah. You know what? Probably because it's it was so minuscule. Not only that, it was only the first offense, you know. It was so minuscule and it was a first offense. When you get to the court date, they'll probably just be like, whatever. Just don't do it again.
Like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like, stop wasting our time. Okay. Yeah. But I do plan on still walking my dog and being a little bit more cautious, but I think the state has lightened up a bit more about that.
Yeah.
How's things in Michigan? I've never really talked to anybody from Michigan.
It's very lenient. You can legitimately do almost anything. In fact, not a lot of people know this, but the whole anti-mask thing, like whole anti-mask group where it's like, I don't have to wear a mask, it's my God-given right. That actually started in Michigan.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. A lot of people look at Michigan and it's like, I can agree with you, it is a shithole, but there's a lot of nice stuff to do up here. Just ignore everybody below the thumb.
No, Michigan's beautiful. I've seen pictures. It's beautiful. I would love to go to Michigan.
Yeah. It is a nice state. It really is. Hawaii is a nice state too. I've never been to Hawaii.
It's like America's vacation spot. That's about it.
Yeah.
As a person who's lived here for like 20 plus years, it's great to visit. It's great to go to the beach once in a while and stay warm. But yeah, other than that, it's really expensive and you're probably going to be living with family.
Yeah.
And jobs are slim pickings. So if you love that kind of environment, come to Hawaii.
Right. And I'm not surprised everything's expensive too. What is the average price for like milk and eggs in Hawaii?
That's a common question. Yeah.
Fucking insane, like incredibly expensive.
Maybe $5 to $7 for a gallon. You know.
Oh my God.
I love milk. I always have it with my protein shakes and cereal every morning. So I buy 2 gallons like every other week. That's like $10. Yeah, plus.
Right.
Yeah.
And going back to the whole job thing too, I feel like it's very slim pickings because there's only like 2 or 3 major producers or like companies that produce like Dole or like government jobs.
We don't have a lot of export. Yeah, we got rid of sugarcane. We have pineapple. We have coffee in the Big Island. I know you could go like task to task with my boyfriend on this. But yeah, it's just really harsh. And I don't mean to shit on my own state because I love it. I love the people and it's really pleasant and it's a kind place. Not a whole lot of violence. It's genuinely a nice place. But in terms of like the economics of having to survive on an island, it's just hard. And I don't encourage people to like make things harder for themselves.
Right.
But in what you were mentioning about like the job market and stuff or slim pickings, I'm very fortunate that I am a state worker and I still maintain my employment for the most part until those furloughs kick in next year. But for now, my 9 to 5 day job has been untouched, and beyond that, I've still been trying to squeeze in my own time to still run my side business as a artist. So that's all things considered. Things have been pretty well, and it's private industry can be really rough, and that's why I wanted to personally get out of private companies and stuff because they'll just axe you. It's pretty harsh. It's cutthroat. State is far more lenient in my experience. Yeah. So,
how long have you been doing your podcast? Like, do you have like a specific day, or do you? Have, like,
the Tree Bark podcast is something I started about, I would say, like late last year in 2019, around November, December. I don't know the specific like first upload date or the first couple episodes. I probably didn't post, but I think we're on like episode 24 now or 23. The most recent one was with Cooper Tom, and I originally intended to just do it as like an interview format only type of podcast, and then it became sort of just a weekly thing now, and I really like doing that. So just in under a year, I would say that it's been going on, and I've been really liking managing that.
Right. I gotta ask, since we're both doing podcasts, how do you get like in touch with a guest, because Twitter DMs has never worked for me.
I really don't like Twitter DMs, and
Yeah.
that's mainly because like it's too public. I like for me, like texting me through Telegram, like just as a furry, is so much more personal because I could use my own Telegram stickers. I could send stupid GIFs. So I can send a bunch of different file formats and stuff that don't get like super compressed or anything. So for me, Twitter is just more of a communication and networking tool, which
Right.
is to like just poke people, and then Telegram is where I can get more personal with people, and then it becomes more of a casual thing, and then that's how I like graduating it into the podcast. And then when I talk to people, it's like, oh, we've already talked a little bit, and then we could actually start getting into the meat and potatoes when we actually get to talk.
Right. What's like the procedure before you get to Telegram? Because what mine is, I normally send like an email, right? And then because Gmail's algorithm, they just automatically put it into spam, and then it's just like a 20% chance that someone will actually reply. And that's actually
Really?
Yeah, it's been surprisingly enough, like actually like it does kind of work. But in the long run, it's a wooden peg leg that has that's broken. It can't. It has no support.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate because like the way that all of these sites operate is based on an algorithm, and if you're not in line with that with the person you're trying to contact, well, you're gonna go in the spam folder.
Right.
I mean, not everybody whom I've reached out to through Twitter has ever gotten back to me. A lot of artists may not even get my notification because they're so flooded with notifications already. But I just try to throw out something out there, reach out, and then I'll say, hey, would you be down for this? I mean, just in the same way that you contacted me, just give me a poke and I'll be like, oh, sure, that sounds cool. I'm game for, wanting to help make more stuff. And reaching out to other creative people, other artists, they're always like happy to do that. So I'm like, oh, sweet. But as far as like, I would say you're more professional than me. Like you sent an email and I just sent a DM.
It seems like a DM works better though, because I only have 3 major episodes that I'm actually proud of, and it's the only 3 episodes that I actually have where it was either a spring of a moment or it was someone that I actually knew. For instance, Cooper Tom was complete luck. I went on VR chat and I met him on VR chat and he seemed really chill. And I actually felt bad because I didn't know who he was. And then last second, I was like, oh my God, the cursed birthday picture. So I sent him a DM on Twitter because I knew he was still playing VR chat. And I DM'd him and he was like, oh, sure, I'll be on.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And that's like the kind of casual nature I like about VR chat and like, I don't know, just talking to furries in general. Because like, I don't know. I don't really talk to people outside the furry community, to be totally honest. It's just like I like my people. My people are really open and cool, and there's always new people, so why not?
Right.
But yeah, just about like the VR chat thing too. Like similar to your experience about like just meeting Cooper Tom. I got into a game like small indie team too, developing art for a game that just. Like that opportunity just came out of nowhere through VR chat because like I met the developer and I'm like, oh, hey, what's up? Do you want to help with this game? Sure, I'm down for that. I would really like to be a part of it. Yeah.
Another thing that sucks too with a podcast is if you don't have like a name or at least your foot in the door. It works the same way as Wall Street. If you're not pushing yourself 100%, it most of the time will flatline. So that's why I try to be super formal with it, like it's a business. But I feel like that's also a downfall because the way I word things, it makes it seem like a scam email. It really does. But I really do put like 100% emails every single time. Are you a
prince from India that wants to give me $1 million?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure if you avoid that kind of lingo, then you'll be fine. But overall, I would say it's been. The way that I've been keeping things, like if you're just consistent and you try to post like every week, if not every other week, some kind of content, people are gonna definitely gravitate towards you, and like they're gonna follow your content, and like I guess that's how you get your like, quote unquote name or brand or whatever out there.
Right.
Um, but yeah, the biggest thing to me that my takeaway is just consistency with like my uploads. So like, for my content and stuff, like I keep flopping between like three main focuses between podcast, painting illustrations, and comic illustration.
Right.
So it's a lot of things because I noticed like I think it goes back to the whole jack of all trades things where it's like I could do a whole lot of things creatively, and I would love to do let's plays of games. I would love to do VR videos. I would love to be a YouTuber, vlogger, all these like things that are like in the creative space. But if I want to sort of make waves in my own kind of like blaze my own trail vibe, like I have to really narrow it down. So for me, my brain limit is sort of at the like those three things that I mentioned.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean that's my jam: podcasts, comics, and freaking painting. I love doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What if I mean, so you've been doing this podcast for a little while now. What have you liked about? Sorry, I don't know if I should be asking questions.
No, that's fine. Go right ahead.
Okay. Yeah, because I want to learn too. Like that's also like the big drive for me when I'm doing these podcasts is like, I'm probably always the dumbest person in the room, and I love being the dumb person because I learn more from my peers.
Right.
So for me, when I get like these brief little windows into other people's lives and I get to talk to them about their craft and their passion that they dedicate their lives to, it's like, wow, I'm so honored that you would give me that time. It's like do you find that sort of like exhilarating though when you do the podcast? And like
I do. It
like,
does
what's your
allow me
takeaway?
because I have like the worst social anxiety. It does allow me to communicate with people. Like when I said I met Cooper Tom in VR chat, I literally just remained quiet. And it was actually a friend of mine who was like, "Do you know who this is?" And I was like, no. And I felt really bad. And then I instantly remembered, and I was like, "Hey, it was fun to chat with you on VR chat. And I was wondering, I have a podcast, can you star on it?" But I use the podcast as like, because back then, if I wanted to talk to people, the only really major way that I could, if I was like, this is such a horrific thing to say, but is if I was intoxicated, or like if I had a barrier, because even on the internet, it's hard to talk to people, especially if you have the worst social anxiety. Like I used to play when CS:GO, Counter-Strike, first came out. I played that game religiously, and I put hours into it. But because of my incredibly horrible social anxiety, I would just stay quiet. I wouldn't give call-outs, you know. Even the internet barrier is not strong enough. I have to actually have like I guess the best way is like a numbness.
Oh, so that's like, yeah, like the people, that's why a lot of my friends too, they'll sometimes drink because the drinking becomes a social lubricant for like people to talk to each other.
Right.
I guess that's why furry parties and stuff are a big thing too, because like a lot of the community, I would say, like, and others would say, is really introverted, comes from the online space. But if you go to a social meet, like, as kind of crazy as it can get and scary as it could be, it's still really fun. And talking to people, I don't drink personally, so yeah, it's kind of funny. Yeah, I would say like I have a little bit of that hesitancy too. The one thing that does help though is like when you're pretty chill and you have something to talk about, because that's sort of why I even gravitate towards just furries, because it's like, well, I don't know, with quote unquote normies, you know, it's like, well, what am I going to talk about? The weather, the latest movie or something? I mean, for me, there's like very little substance there. Right. So like if it's like furry, it's like, oh cool, like what's been going on in like Twitter furry world or whatever. It's so much more like interesting to me, and then that automatically puts us more in like a close space. Right. And like it's like, oh yeah, I totally like get rid of my inhibitions, and I'm just here to talk to you and talk about cool, funny, dank memes or whatever.
Right. Another way that like helped me with communicating with people was, instead of relying on like actually saying the first thing, to rather just be pushed into it. That also really helped. Like, I used to go to a cigar bar that, you know, to smoke a cigar, and it's a very social place. So I had the idea, I never actually talked to anybody like at the cigar bar. So I was like, I'm gonna bring a friend who has never smoked cigars before. He's a complete noob. And because me and him are such good friends, I can trash on him like, that's not how you cut the damn cigar, you know?
Yeah.
But I can have like, I can almost put comedic value on it. Like, I took him to a cigar bar once, and he was trying to use a trimmer, and he could not trim the cigar. And I'm like, you do it this way, you dingus. And I'd look at this guy who's sitting at the bar, and I'm like, you fucking newbie, am I right? But it ended up evolving into a bigger conversation. But just being pushed into it and having like a hand like on your back, like, you're doing a good job, you know. It gives what's the word I'm looking for? It gives a more positive outcome than like,
it's like, you're kind of like you're mentoring somebody, or you're showing somebody like a new kind of like world or something like that. Like, I've never smoked, so that'd be kind of new and interesting. I've never experienced that. But yeah, I can totally get that though. It's like, you're showing somebody new the ropes, and it's like, I'm gonna mess up and whatever, but that's part of the fun.
Yeah. It's insane though, just to see, like, completely off topic, it's insane to see how much the community has grown from when it started out in like 1990 with like conference.
Okay. I'm kind of curious too about your perspective on that, because I mean, for a lot of the things, I think for you or I, like, we've never really like grown up in the 90s or the 80s experiencing the really brutal first steps of the fandom.
Right.
And seeing those 90s videos of like the first cons with like the first types of really, like, not to discount the artists then, but like the really crude renditions of fursuits, and like looking at the really polished ones now. Like, how is that for you, like looking into the history of furry versus like what it is today and what it's like to be a part of that today?
A lot of people, when they look at it, they cringe, especially when they see like I remember watching like a video from like the 90s of like Conference 3 or like Conference 4, where there was like this, oh god, what, it was like a Bambi character but in like gimp attire. And just like, whoa, okay, I kind of get where you're coming from. I'm very lenient when it comes to cringy things, of course, but you know,
everyone's got their own cringe, I think. Like, I would say not that I have a tolerance of cringe. Like, if I see automatically like people enjoying doing something, and they're just like, you know, even like bumbling around or just having fun, that to me really isn't cringe. Because I've seen like what we'll do sometimes at like fur meets or whatever, when we could have those, was when like we just have dinner or something, like it'd be a party and everyone's kind of laxing, and then when we're in this lax period, we put on like Cool Cat or whatever, or like just stupid furry YouTube videos, and then while that's playing, it's like cringe videos, and we're just like laughing at them or whatever.
Because it has such a historical aspect too. It's not just cringy, but it has that historical aspect, and you're like, oh man, people did that? Why?
And we can just laugh at ourselves about it instead of just being like, oh god, I'll be a hater too or whatever. It was so weird. On my most recent podcast episode that I posted to YouTube, there was this one dude or girl, I don't know who, but it's the first time I ever received negativity on a video, because it's not like the content. Okay, like I posted it within an hour, and the podcast is like an hour plus or whatever. So I could tell that they didn't look at the whole video or listen to the whole video, because the comments were made in like the first 10 minutes of the upload. So I look at it, and then the first video comments aren't like from my friends like I'm usually used to or whatever. It was like, oh, gross, furry, cringe, you're a degenerate, like, ew, furry. And I'm like, whoa, where's this negativity coming from? And I'm looking at all of these accounts, and they're all made by the same person who made multiple accounts to bash one of my videos that I've seen. I was like, whoa, this is different.
Yeah.
So yeah, people go through crazy lengths to just sort of kind of, you know, like poop on people, and that's not like that to me is cringe. If you want to know what cringe is,
Right. You know what's funny about that too? People go out of their way to make separate, like more than one account just to shit on someone, but they don't realize that once they click on the video, that counts as revenue. That's revenue. You're giving the person basically free money just so you can shit on them. That's why I always find it funny when people don't like a specific YouTuber and they go on their comment section, they're like, you're fucking trash. I'm like, yeah, but you're giving them free money because you went and viewed their video. If you don't like someone, just don't watch them.
It's still attention. The attention gets the clicks, and that's all that they really care about from a business standpoint. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But I think that's the one thing that I think YouTube and a whole lot of these like social platforms have to work on is just like kind of outlining where the hate goes. And I mean, you can report them. Like, so for me on my videos, I could report the accounts, and I did. And then I also removed them under the replies. And then some people commented like, whoa, where's all this hate coming from? And it's like, yeah, there was a person who spam bombed the chat or whatever. So it just makes it kind of more hard for people to really enjoy. I don't know, but it's so few and far in between in my experience. That was the first time I ever seen a hater, quote unquote. Yeah, I would really think that your time is better spent if you're encouraging things you like instead of trying to tell people what they can't like.
That's like an amazing quote to live by too.
What is that?
What you said, like, that's a good like quote to live by. Like, fuck, I already forgot what you just said. I was gonna quote it.
No, I mean, no, but yeah, along that same thought, like, just do what you love, because then you'll gravitate towards people who love that thing. And like, to get on my little soapbox, like, I don't see any like room for hate in my life because it doesn't push me or my friends or family and loved ones up, you know? All ships, you know, rise with the tide and stuff. So, yeah.
Right. So I gotta ask, out of all the podcast episodes that you did, which was like your all-time favorite? Like, who was the favorite person, like the best person you got to interview?
I don't really have a favorite, but I do think, like, as of late in recent memory, it's kind of funny. I equate having like the memories with these people like to like how I take time to sometimes draw or come up with an idea for a commission. Where it's like the thing I'm doing at the time, like when I think of that episode or when I think of that painting that I did, I can sort of remember what I was doing at the time, like in the nights that I was doing it, and I sort of remember the days in my memory specifically.
Right.
And that's how I think of like the podcast episode. And then when I want to sort of experience that again, I just go back and listen to it, and then I realize like I can like better digest all the things they said. But as to answer your question, the one in my recent memory that I really liked, because I love them all, was my chat with Blue, Blue the Dragon. He was a YouTuber, or he still is a YouTuber, but I caught wind of him like a couple years back, actually, when I first joined the fandom, and I saw him reaching out and just like making a couple of videos about like his struggle as a creative, and that really touched me because I often have personal struggles too, trying to figure out my creative career. So seeing that one was really personal to me, and it was really touching because I found a lot of parallels with each other trying to figure out things in a similar sense, because we're both creators, and a lot of the humor sometimes that I got from Blue was really similar to my own, where we'd both kind of be like busting each other like after every sentence and like kind of playing off each other's jokes and stuff. And I was like, wow, that was really cool. I really like that.
Yeah.
So it all goes back to like how I have just kind of like these little pockets of like just kind of vibing with people. You know, it's nothing serious and it's just chill, and it's like, oh, I had a really good time, and it was kind of like having a little fur meet or a little just hang out with a furry.
It really is. It's like a little fur meet that's just like, I don't know why, but I feel like in the long run, I honestly think just talking to someone who's also in the community is way more exciting than actually going to like a convention and talking to people, because when you're at a convention, you tend to focus more on other people, where
that's true.
When you're just talking one-on-one, you tend to focus on just that one person and you can get to know them a lot better.
It's way, I like the, because I'm more of an introvert too, so like I totally agree with what you said, where it's like when I'm at a convention, I've only been to one at BLFC 2019, but when I went there though, I was very much experiencing the con life, the bigger social picture. And I'm there for like the high end energy and like the party nature and like all of the bells and whistles that's going on, you know, down below in the GSR, where people are gambling and people are eating good food, and it's just kind of like this high energy atmosphere. And that really like overwhelmed me a couple of times, but I was there for that. When it got more personal, it was when I was in just a con room and I was just with my group of small friends and playing Smash Brothers or something like that.
Right.
And even like a podcast, even to like a greater level, because like here I am talking to a friend or talking to another podcast host, and we're just kind of shooting the shit, and that's it's kind of like that small dance in a conversation that I really do enjoy. Yeah, and that's something I do take home, and I do think about more and more when I'm, you know, doing my day job or whatever, or doing my art, and thinking about how much I appreciated those moments.
Yeah.
But yeah, Blue was really cool. He's a really funny person. That's one of my favorite episodes.
I want to interview Blue. I'll have to shoot him an email or a DM.
For sure, yeah. How do you go about like pegging people for like who you want to interview?
Most of the time it starts out with, if they have open DMs on Twitter, it always starts out with a DM on Twitter, and that message that I sent you is actually like permanently copied in like a text
Yeah,
box.
I could tell, yeah.
And because I try to I treat it like it's a business. I treat it like it's a formal like business letter. And then if the Twitter DM isn't gonna work, I send an email. And then a lot of the times it is just waiting. It's patience. And I have almost no patience, which is funny because I grew up with so much old shit that you'd think I'd have insane patience. But
I know you're spoiled now.
But
Wi-Fi, 4G connectivity.
But when a person does answer, I get like the biggest dopamine rush. I'm like, oh boy, this new person interview, and
yes, that's a real high, yeah. But even like going, like I kind of like, so I mean that's how you do it on a technical business side. Like I was kind of asking like what's your intonation like for the reason for like, oh, I want to go talk to this person, because like when I personally reach out to people, I'm reaching out for like the creative type specifically, you know, that's like my whole kind of interview mindset. Like I want to learn from other artists and creators and stuff.
It is similar, almost similar, but it also relies on, I don't want to say this because it makes me sound like a petty asshole, but it does also rely on a brand name, you know, because
that's totally true too. Yeah.
You know, if I were like, you know, it's the same reason why I wouldn't interview just like some random person that I found on DeviantArt like a week ago, and I wouldn't shoot him an email. I would go for someone who has, God, this sounds so petty. I would shoot an email to someone who has a higher like brand recognition or a good name in the community.
Sure, yeah.
And then I would learn from them on like their aspects of life or their aspects of, you know, how they go throughout their day. But a lot of the times too, it also relies on if I just want to actually meet this person and like see how their life is, you know.
Yeah. There's a lot of truth to that, because I mean, yeah, I guess you could say that there's a little light to the pettiness of it, but I don't think so, because when people are putting out content, you can see that they're really happy to share the things that they want to, So getting a high follower count or getting, some kind of like brand recognition or something like that for being a Popufur. I mean, whoa, Popufur, like that's so amazing, I guess. But
Right.
it it's more of the byproduct, I think, of being also a really interesting person.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's really hard as a person who I do think about that from time to time, where it's like, well, what are my values? What is it that I want to put out into the world, and how can I hone my blade? It's like those people have kind of done it, and that's why that they got to like the social status that they have. And not a lot of really talented artists either have like as much followers as I think they should have. So it's kind of funny how to see how it plays out for different people and different creatives, but I like to think of like the adulation that you get from a crowd is because you do try to put out your best stuff, and it's like, wow, why wouldn't I want to try and tap that person to see what they're doing and learn more from them? Yeah.
Man, we're already at an hour and 5 minutes.
Oh yeah. It's, again, like, yeah, as I know, when you do like talking and stuff, it just kind of like
It goes
fast
by
forward
so fast.
Yeah. I don't. How long do you run your show for?
Normally it's about an hour, or until the audio recording software is like too much. That's actually what happened with Cooper Tom. There's actually like an extra 20 minutes that just got cut off because my recording software was like, nope, that's too much.
I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't mind exploding your PC. I love to talk.
Well, I did just go through like a mass purge of like old pictures, so it might actually have a little bit more space. I don't know. I'm trying to do math in my head because it's recording at 44,100 hertz.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, what, 2 kilobytes every second of a recording?
Oh, really? Okay. That's
so I'm trying
high.
to like... Yeah, we probably still have plenty more time. We could probably drag it on for an hour 30.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I know. I read like a little behind the scenes tech stuff right now. I do have a Rode podcaster, and it's really cool because you could just like throw it. It's a totally independent device where I just hook up my mics and stuff, and it so happens that I can also connect it to my desktop PC, which is really sweet for transferring files. But it's a totally standalone device, and you could just pop a little micro SD of any size, really, like up to like 512 gigs or something.
Right.
And I'm set to record for like the next 12 hours.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. I
Are
don't
there
know,
any...
like
No, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I mean, just kind of dipping into like the fandom for you, I was kind of interested because I mean, you're not to play the age card or whatever, but you're such a young fur. You're so youthful, and I'm so old. What caught your eye for the fandom? Because I don't know, I personally think that, you know, people typically see porn or whatever, or I found it through Vine. I'll just be honest. Like, I thought that this was a cool community. I like the suits and stuff. Like, what was the catch for you?
Well, I'm not gonna lie to you. You know, so as a troubled youth, I joined the fandom back in 2009, which is gonna be fucking awful when I say this, but I technically did find it. I found it through the internet. I remember it was originally like a fursuit dance video.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And then I did more research on it, and then that's when little 8-year-old me stumbled onto furry porn on accident. I was like, oh, I don't like this.
Shit.
No, this is not good.
It's thinning. That's thin.
But later I stopped focusing on what people do in their spare time and what people actually put out into the community, and I found out that it's a very positive community. Well, at least it was back then. I don't know if it still is now. There's a lot of drama that happens, but back then it was such an open community. It didn't matter what political stance you had, what gender you were, if you were gay, straight, bi. It was open.
But you know what I hate? Like, to just sort of, sorry to interrupt, but like, why do people have to identify as like these two-dimensional things? You know?
That's such a true statement, though. That really is.
Like, Like, oh, I'm left wing, I'm gay. Like, okay, cool, that's your sexuality or that's your political leaning, whatever. Why do you identify your whole being as that thing?
A lot of times it relies on character. Like, when I think of, like, if I were to think of, like, some random comedian like Jeff Foxworthy, where he has that really Republican, like, standard, and I feel like that kind of adds to character. But at the same time, I do get what you're saying. Like, yeah, labeling yourself just because of a political stance is kind of, I wouldn't say petty, but almost like, it's whack. That's like, it's whack.
It is pretty whack. Like, it's kind of shallow. Like, I want to get to know you because you're a cool freaking sparkle fox or something. And like, what's that Sona about? You know, like, what's, like, you like stamps? You like collecting stamps? Tell me about that. You know, like, I want to know you, not what your tribe is or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the kind of cool stuff I like to geek out about. And it's like, well, I don't know. I don't even think I could have a podcast episode where I just talk about somebody's sexual identity. That's like, I don't know.
Right. That's why I tend to stay away from politics and stuff like that. Not only because it can offend people at some point, but it's also just, it's just one of those topics that gets talked about so much that it's no longer like big.
It's not fun.
Yeah, it's not fun.
It's not fun, and it's like, if it's not contributing to like something that's interesting, that's like more about who you are rather than who you're identifying with, quote unquote, like there's the substance, there's the meat and potatoes, like show me what cool stuff you like. Yeah. I like to rant about stuff that probably shouldn't.
No, I do it all the time too. Like literally at a dinner party, just like all of a sudden, like sitting down, everyone's quiet, just, you know, Donald Trump isn't really that bad, and then everyone goes like, oh, you. It's literally like that, like the most random times. That's also a part of like my awkward like quirkiness that I just don't like. But so many people are like, that's such a good like character development that you have for yourself, and I'm like, is it really though? You know,
I mean, you like to, I mean, granted, I personally don't like what do you call that, like water talk or whatever. What is it? You're standing next to the freaking like, yeah, like I mentioned before, like how's the weather or how's the movie or whatever. Like, I don't know, talk about something interesting. Talk about like your experience going to, I don't know, Japan or something, or how was the FurCon? Like, that's the cool stuff that's interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
I've never, you know, my character that I made represents so much. I don't like talking about it because it's super touchy, but I talked about it once with a friend, and they were like, really? And I go, yeah, that's what it represents, you know. A lot of people don't realize that.
I'm a pretty open book.
I mean, fuck, I can.
How would it be touchy? Is it touchy to others or to you? You would say, like,
to me,
you
like,
oh,
there's a lot of personal downfall and like rising back up that led to the character creation. Like, we're talking, you know, fucking drug overdoses, you know, jail time, you know, it really does represent a lot. I mean, I could get into it. I don't mind talking about it, but the basis for what how I created Stony was just downfalls, and then it gets represented as I took that negative and kind of turned it into a positive by making the most like over positive character I could, but having, I try to put as much like specifics in when I design something. I try to put a lot of specifics in it because that's what I was taught in school, you know, specific, detail.
Yeah, it takes, and again, like that's, I will always be like a broken record, but that's why I love the community, because like people may not sometimes understand that it's like, no, these sonas or these things that people create aren't, I don't know, it's not like escapism or whatever. People like literally take a lot of their personal experience to develop who they want to show or represent themselves with.
Yeah, it's not a mantelpiece, it's history.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a culmination of, I think, I can't speak for everybody, but I would think that people take a lot of time and care to think about what kind of Sona they want to make that represents them on a very personal level, because that's whom they identify as, that's whom that they come to know with, and that it can grow and change at any time. And you'll see, like, I've only really had one or two Sonas. I was a Snep originally, because I thought Snaps were cool, and I was like, oh, it's not a run-of-the-mill dog. Then I became a dog. But for what it's worth, it's like, no, I just allow myself to sort of change and feel like how comfortable I was around new friends in the community that I was making, and then it sort of just progressed naturally.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm a dog. Canid bias, I go a woo. Yeah.
Shit, I'm trying to drag this on and I can't think of anything else to say. I can't think of anything else to ask.
Oh, well, I hope I got to answer all the questions in some kind of way that made sense.
Oh, no, you did. 100%. Like,
oh, thank you.
This is like perfect episode. Like, nothing went bad. My audio recording software isn't having an aneurysm. It's doing really well.
Oh, yeah, I'm super glad. Yeah, I mean, if you ever need a backup or anything too, I do have the recording to spare, because sometimes the guest has also done a recording just for insurance, and then I totally messed up my audio level on my side, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna need that file, and they're like, oh, I got you, man. I'm like, oh, thank you.
Ooh, I know something. Do you have any other like art mediums besides drawing and podcasts? Like music or photography or...
I had a little bit of piano, a little bit of photography, and again, I love just making and doing and experiencing things. So it's really crazy when I want to really develop myself and get into something. I know I take away time from other things, so I'm really hesitant about what I'm spending my time in that I want to, invest more into.
Right.
So even if it's like video games or something, or even like I was talking about, like the this Retroid Pocket thing that I'm playing with, I'm really conscious of like, oh God, I could be spending this time on art. I could be promoting myself or whatever in my business. I could always be setting up another interview for my podcast, or be planning out the next 10 pages of my comic that I really should be doing.
Right.
Or even the next 3 commission posts that I put on my Patreon that I now have to fulfill, do thumbnails for, do refinings, check in with the clients, do all of these steps for these things. And I'm like, whenever I tack on another thing, I get too mental about it. I get a little neurotic. So I try to maintain like a small amount of things that I do. So most of my painting is just digital. I did a little bit of acrylic before, but it's so much faster and more time beneficiary to like cost to time. Like a little bit from like a professional standpoint, like the business background of things, like I'm faster at doing digital paint. I'm more familiar with Photoshop and those tools I'm really savvy with. And at the same time, I can still do studies and sketching and figure drawing in traditional mediums, like in a sketchbook, because it's just studies and it's not something I'm going to be sharing often. So my studies can be often in sketchbooks, but then my digital stuff is like where 99% of my time goes into.
Right.
Yeah. So I would love to do all these different things, but I have to, it's sort of where the what you call discipline comes into play, where I'm trying to get better at every day.
One of the major things that I do to get better at certain things is to also implement other things. For instance, I've always been, I don't want to toot my own horn and sound egotistical, but I've always just been very good with music and just, everything else. And I try to implement other things that I know with music. For instance, like I said, I grew up with older stuff. So one of the things that I grew up with was computers that didn't run, Windows. They ran like Microsoft Basic, programming language, where you had to type out 600 different commands to do one thing. and I wanted to implement things that I'm familiar with the stuff that I'm also familiar with. So I try to, for instance, every once in a while I'll turn on my old programming computer and I'll try to make music with it using like a single sound chip. And it does work. I do have fun doing it, but then you also have the time where you go to list it and then run it. It's like error in line 105, and I'm like, oh, okay, so I gotta list 105, and then it's error in 20, and I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta go. And then when you finally get it done, it's such a dopamine rush because, you know, you sat down and took the time and effort to make something that's yours, and you can truly call it yours, even if it relies off of another art medium.
That's exactly like the main struggle too, right there, of like, just as you mentioned with the whole finishing the task and then like feeling the confidence and feeling the rush of completing it. And whenever I add another thing onto like my list of doing something, it's like, oh, it's another project I gotta do. And then that project offsets all of my current projects. And then I never feel like the satisfaction of completing something. And then that bums me out, and then that makes me more unproductive. But it's definitely like, yeah, like one baby step at a time, and the things that I pick up along the way, I'll try to incorporate together. It's really tough, but it's really tough to try and improve at everything, like be your best self all the time.
It does, it does have an insane strain on
it's
not
burnout,
just mental health, but physical health too.
Yeah, I do work out Monday through Friday, like an hour to 2 hours a day too. So it's like, oof, 9-to-5 job, podcast, comic, painting, exercise. What else can I do? But as much as I sometimes get burned out with that or feel like depressed or trapped, it's like, no, what else would I rather be doing with my life? And it's like, no, I love what I do, and that's making furry content. Yeah.
And that's a great thing to end on right there.
Oh, sure. Okay.
We're an hour and 22 in. Thank you for coming, Theo.
Thank you, Stoney.
It was a pleasure talking to you. It's a pleasure meeting new people.
Yes, likewise.
The only thing I gotta end off on before we fully end it is one of the biggest things that helps me out. This is so fucking stupid. One of the biggest things that helps me out is when I tweet something, like I just did a podcast episode, please watch it, help me out. I also asked the person I interviewed, like, hey, shout it out,
No, definitely. Yeah. You guys should go check out Stoney. I really like the podcast. So far, it's been pretty chill, and I like your format.
Thank you. Yeah. Really appreciate it. That actually just made my entire night.
Aw, thank you. I mean, no, yeah. Again, like, regardless, I know, like, you asked me, but thanks for setting time to talk and like help make something new. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Anyways,
unless I can give a quick plug too. I don't know.
No, sure. Okay. Please plug all the plugs, every single one now, quickly.
Yeah. Hey guys, my name is Theo. Real quick, I also go by Shikokubo online. That's Shikokubo. I have platforms on Twitter, social media, and FA Furaffinity, all at Shikokubo, and even on YouTube at Shikokubo. I make a lot of things, but I try to keep it to comics, paintings, and stuff on my Patreon, also at Shikokubo. Thank you so much for listening to my ramblings.
Also, to help out, he has a cool podcast. Is it Tree Bark? I forgot.
Oh God, I forgot to mention the one thing. Yeah. Also, check out the podcast that I do over on other podcasting, where you get your favorite podcasting shows. It's called Tree Bark. I'm a dog, and I bark into a microphone with my boyfriend, who's a dragon. He goes roar. And we just talk about furry stuff and what happens, and I do interviews with other artists and creatives alike.
You and your boyfriend are such a cute couple. I have to say that before I end it.
Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah,
Anyways,
we should hang out and play VR. Okay. Anyway.
this has been the Smoke Stop Podcast. I'm your host, Tony Aina, signing off.